Hello, everybody. Welcome to Geek Wanting, the cycling tech-focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome. Joining me this week, Ronan McLaughlin. Ronan, how you doing?
I'm on camera.
Yes, we're both on camera, but hopefully, fingers crossed, no one ever sees this.
Oh, what do you mean? No, we've said it now. People are just going to want to see it. But
yeah.
This is a test.
This is
a drill.
It's an internal test for us. So right now we're still only on podcast format, but maybe from next week we'll be on YouTube for you to watch the podcast. Although I highly discourage it. Just keep using podcasts as they were intended.
I knew it was a test, but I thought it would inevitably end up getting published. And so, like, I've prepped. I have had caffeine, creatine, protein, nicotine, all the ends to get myself psyched up.
Do you have some snooze up in your upper lip right now?
I'm just trying to figure out the last missing piece of the puzzle is what will be the shock face, clickbait, rage bait thumbnail for this.
Yeah, I think we're still a year away from getting to that point, but
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, I went as far as putting on a hat to hide the haircut that I haven't had. So maybe next week I will have had a haircut, and therefore,
with the way my hair is going, I put on headphones to cover my hair.
Yeah. If you see us recording episodes in helmets, just know we haven't had haircuts. Got a bit of an episode to get through. Quite a bit to chat about. There is an exciting new bike on the list, not carbon. There's some wheels that you've spotted that could be seen at the front of the tour. Some interesting bike bags, which is not a topic we normally talk about, or a phrase I've ever said before, actually. So there you have it. And we've got something on our mind. At the end of this episode, we've also got Ask a Wrench, which is a member-only section. And this week, Ronan, you're sticking around to help with this one. We've got some questions up your alley. So a little bit different than usual, but I'm excited for it. Ronan, before we started recording, you told me you're on a bit of a time crunch because you're trying to get in before the rain. What's got you so desperate to get out on the bike?
I have a soft stop. Let's try to wrap this up before the rain comes in. It's been dry here for a couple of days, and over the weekend I've had that Cannondale G4X for a bit. It kind of turned into the tire testing mule bike. The one thing that I could never really get on with is just the handlebars. The stem was so short and the bars are wide, and the bars in general I just never really got along with. And so I, over the weekend, swapped them out for you know the Enve Aero en route stem and bars. They arrived and I was like, oh, I forgot this is going to be a whole internal routing nightmare. And coincidentally, I was helping a mate who is switching to, he's got a Team Machine SLR and he wants to put on the new BMC handlebars, which have like hidden externally routed cables. And to my surprise, the fully internal Enve setup went much smoother, much easier, and much quicker than the externally hidden cables on the new BMC. I mean, it's partly because he's running EPS 12-speed with wires and hydraulic hoses, and complicates things a little bit. But yeah, I want to get out and try that bike now with the new setup on the front end.
Sounds cool. All right. Yeah, hopefully we get in before the rain beats you. But let's get on to some things. And first on the list is actually one that I'm sneaking onto the list. You probably haven't seen this, but we actually have a position open in the tech team that we're looking to fill. So we need a new tech editor, ideally, and probably in the US. So if you like bikes, love bikes, live and breathe them, like all kinds of bikes, mountain bike, gravel, road, you like photography, you can write, and I would say you're comfortable with at least bleeding a brake without having to watch YouTube, we have a role that we would like you to apply for.
And I would say if you have none of those things, no, not if you have none, but if you don't meet all that criteria, but you are exceptionally nerdy and techie about bikes, you might be in a position to apply on it. Dave, think back to whenever I applied for the job back in Cycling Tips. I'd just broken Contador's Everesting world record, and you had covered...
Just dropping that little fact, yep.
Yeah, just, I mean, why wouldn't I? And you had covered the bike that I used, which was hacked to within an inch of its life. And And so if you're the kind of person that does stuff like that, it might be worth your while considering applying. Back then, there was a tech role advertised as cycling tips, and the criteria was America based only and other criteria that I didn't meet.
Oh, you're going to get us inundated with resumes.
But a week after I had sent you like all the photos and the details on the bike, I just messaged you something like, oh, if I had known this position was open, I might have tried harder with the write-up that I gave you on the bike. And you're like, just apply anyway and see how it goes. And long story short, I'm sitting here today.
Yeah. And back then it was James checking through the resumes, and your name came up, and I was like, hey, just look at this guy, Ronan McLaughlin. And James like, oh, he's got no real experience. And then I think on the second page of your resume, very last line or something, you like had your Everesting relation, and then it triggered him. He's like, oh, that's that Ronan. Until then, it was just a resume with quite interesting things that
James always tells the story that was on the 5th page. I can't remember.
It was actually, you're probably right. It was quite lengthy, that resume. But anyway.
Put the relevant stuff at the start is the key to any good resume.
Yeah, I would say right now we're actually somewhat interested in people that don't necessarily come from media, that can write and can communicate really well and professionally, and maybe have picked up a camera before. Maybe not. That can be taught. But it's more the bike experience, the right attitude, and kind of the right perspective, like someone that's just willing to speak from the point of view of cyclists rather than the point of view of brands. So I think that's really what we're seeking here. But yeah, the ability to work on your own stuff is quite high up on the roll, given that you'll be testing all sorts of new stuff all the time. So, all right, there you have it. Head to Escape Collecting. We've got a careers page there where you'll find that ad if you want to know more. And hopefully we fill that role real soon, because we're coming into the busy season. Let's get on with some news. We've got a new Cannondale CAAD 14 this week, which is pretty exciting as far as new bikes go. Cannondale CAAD, that's about as iconic as the road platforms get in our little sport. And I don't know, Ronan, I don't know how many you've had. I think I've had 3 or 4 in my time. I've got a CAAD 12 rim brake sitting in storage at the moment, which was a happier place to keep it than a damp storeroom where it was starting to get moldy. But yeah, I'm a fan of the CAADs. I have to say, I've got a soft spot for them. What about you? Have you ever had one?
Will you sack me if I tell you I've never even sat on one?
And this is why we're looking for a new tech editor, actually.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not.
Yeah, wow. I'm amazed you found your way into young person's road racing without having used CAAD.
I mean, yeah, Lightspeed was sort of the metal bike of choice in our area because we had a Lightspeed dealer, and there was no Cannondale dealers.
That's quite fancy.
I mean, not like a Lightspeed Ultimate or something like that, but a Mira, if I remember correctly, which was just a terrible bike. But I don't think it's entirely my fault either, because I mean, by the time I got to the point where I might have chosen one to purchase myself, Cannondale had done the CAAD 13, which was not a bike you chose to buy.
Yes. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, one of the bikes that I'd say I let go of where I regret is I had a CAAD 9, which is the last generation of the US made ones. And I foolishly, like an absolute idiot, because I was working for the company at the time, or the distributor at least, I sold my CAAD 9, which was really nicely built. It was about 7 kilograms all up. I had it down to 6.5 at one point, but it was about 7 when I stopped breaking things on it. And I sold that in order to pay for a BMC Racemaster SLX, which I don't know if you remember is the bike that George Hincapie used to spend a bunch of time on. It was like the hybrid carbon aluminium bike. Awful bike. And so I sold a really lovely collector's item, or what became a collector's item, for a bike that no one looks out for anymore. CAAD 14, it basically returns to the CAAD's roots of focusing on being a metal bike. And this is really something where Cannondale went wrong on the CAAD 13. So the CAAD 12 that I have in my possession still is still very much a metal bike. It's mostly round tubes. They are hydroformed a little bit, but it's largely still, you look at it and go, yep, that is a classic metal bike. Like, it's got traditional seat stays and pretty traditional looking tube profiles. The CAD 13, I think they misstepped. They really tried to make like a copy of the System 6 at the time. Super 6?
Super 6. Super 6.
The Super 6 at the time. And so they really mimicked carbon tube profiles. They made it a little bit softer as a result. For me, it just kind of lost the point of why you'd buy an aluminium bike.
Didn't even look like a CAD race bike. It
no, it was a cheap Super 6, and it wasn't even that cheap. The price difference wasn't substantial enough to justify its existence. But yeah, basically they've reversed it back, and I think they now have a bunch of round tube profiles once again, and they've tried to bring it back to its roots of being like a entry level / kind of like everyday sort of, you know, rider's choice type race bike. Very similar, like I guess Specialized LA Sprint, even what they've been doing since the CAD 13's been in market.
The elusive, never in stock LA Sprint.
Yes. So yeah, I don't know. It looks good. Like it's obviously significantly, it's heavier than a Super 6. It's probably about 1,400-ish grams per frame. So if you're worried about weight, you're still going to go carbon. But feature-wise, it tends to tick all the boxes. It's got threaded bottom bracket. It's got 32mm tire clearance. It's got a UDH. Does have headset cable routing, but at least that gives it a premium look. But it's Cannondale's Delta system, so you're still somewhat open as far as like the handlebars and stems you can fit to this. I don't know, it looks great, but to me, the CAD was the bike that got a lot of people stoked on racing at an affordable price point, and I'm not convinced that this bike does that. It's $2,500 US starting price point, and that is with like a 105 mechanical build on it, which is not even a build I'd necessarily recommend given the headset cable routing. So yeah, I don't know whether it's just going to be for the CAD fans out there that already have 5 bikes and they just want a CAD to roll around on. I just don't know if this is affordable enough to bring back the real legacy of the CAD.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue here is mostly the pricing, isn't it? I think, you know, looks wise, it ticks all the boxes, and you know, I don't think any of us are expecting progressive geometries or aero claims or anything like that around this bike, and that's, you know, arguably the right move for such a bike. But yeah, I think the price just, you know, if it is to be what the CAD always was, it's the price that's sort of hampering that at the moment, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's a tough balance because components are just that much more expensive now. Disc brakes have.
I mean, there's also just demand.
It's just demand, yeah. Yep, there's that.
At least they've brought it back, and they've probably priced it in such a way that, you know, with the understanding that outright demand isn't going to be there, and so, you know, they do have to make a profit on these things, and that sort of ends up dictating where it lands, I think.
Yeah, it does. It just it feels a little bit premium for what that CAD once was, but at the same time, it's like, where do you go from there? Because it's already 105 mechanical. They could put a Tiago mechanical on it, but it's not really fitting of a nice race frame at that point. So I think they've kind of done the right thing. I just am bothered by that's what bikes just cost these days.
Here's a theory though. So with, you know, when you already mentioned there, great race bike back in the early 2010s, 2000s, and that the CAD was just the race bike that got you started. Do you think this bike, the new CAD 14, is developed for the same sort of use case, or is it developed for older generation like ourselves and older who have the disposable income to spend on an alloy bike, and actually the kids racing today you're just never going to sell them an alloy bike. It's carbon. Why would you have anything else? It's aero. Why would you have anything else? It's going to be a very hard sell to get them onto an alloy bike to start with. And so, you know, arguably in some ways, shooting for the same target market could have turned out to be a disaster for Cannondale. And so they've just gone, you know what? The people who are going to buy this are probably the people who bought a CAD 20 years ago. Yep. Let's build it and price it as such.
Officially, Cannondale is saying it's both that they're going after with this, or who they designed it for. In reality, it's 100% the person you're saying it is. It's the person that either dreamed of owning a really nice CAD 15, 20 years ago, or that did own a CAD. Maybe it wasn't very nice. Maybe it was like Tiagra level, like my first CAD 5 was.
And being back on a CAD will fix all their mortgage problems, cost of living problems, everything in
Until
life.
They realize how much stiffer an aluminium bike is, and that they actually just prefer the ride of their carbon bike that they already have in the garage. But I do think yeah, I think fundamentally it's this bike is for people with money, and they're probably going to get the high spec ones, or they're going to start with a frame set and build it up into something really cool that becomes a bit of a talking piece in the bunch. I also believe that this is a smarter bike for many people that do weekly criterium racing. I think
Mm.
the current state of the super aero race bikes and aero bikes, yes, they're going to be faster. There will be an advantage to being on them, but you have one slip of a wheel or one touch of the wheel and you basically are rising off that bike. I think there is a chance that this CAD comes out of it relatively unscathed, and while you might damage it, you'll at least be able to physically see the damage and the dent and be able to watch it while you continue to ride that frame. So I think that is still a use case for the CAD and always has been. And I think if you're the sort of person that does weekly criterium racing, then I think a bike that basically is a crit bike makes a lot of sense still. So
Mm.
put some nice wheels on it, go race it. All right. Well, that's the CAD 14. Head to escapecollective.com. Alex has actually done a write up on it. Funny story with that. I've actually been asking for one to review from before all the spotted articles came out. I can't remember exactly how I figured out that they're doing one. I think I just decided it was time that they had one coming out. So I think I sent my first email 7 months ago to Cannondale being like, hey, I think I might have heard rumors of the Super 6, and I knew historically that they always had new CADs along with Super 6. I think that's what stirred me to email them and said, hey, just in case you're redoing the CAD, can I put my hand up for a test bike? Anyway, 7 months later, the bike's now launched. Sadly, no test bike. So, Cannondale, I know you're listening. Still waiting.
There's something of a trend there, because I had the same issues with the Super 6, and I went to the press trip and was promised there would be a review bike well in advance of the embargo, and the embargo has passed almost a month ago now, and there's still no review bike. I mean, as I said in the review that I did, at this point, I won't be taking in a review bike, but yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's move on. We've got a interesting bike that came to us through the Instagram algorithm. We couldn't really tell if it was a real thing, whether it was like an AI generated brand, whether it was just a concept brand. Still not 100% sure, to be honest, but it does have a nice website, Champn, without the I or O in the word. They have a whole bike coming out, which we didn't realize until just hitting record. But we got distracted by the handlebar and a specific design element in the handlebar, which is it's a one-piece handlebar and stem, but it's got, how would you describe this? It's semi-external cable routing. So the brake hoses run sort of underneath the bar, not too dissimilar to like a Cervelo
What I
S5
described with the
bar,
BMC.
or the BMC you've described, or a bunch of
This
bars
looks
that
worse.
Cervelo does.
I say worse. The BMC isn't actually a bad solution.
Yep.
It was what I was trying to put into it, but this, because it's much more open. There is two grooves the size of a hydraulic hose onto the bars that you can precisely fit a hydraulic hose into by the looks of it, and with no extra length or anything to play with. It looks like it's going to have to be very precise.
Yep. Which is not too different to how a one-piece bar normally is, but I guess you could sort of shove a bit more down the head tube and down the frame to give yourself some slack. But the interesting point is they've actually got built-in channels for quick connectors into the hose. So quite similar. I don't know what quick connector they're aiming to use here, but it looks quite similar. It's like a Xeno version 2, so it's an inline quick connector. And so the idea is that you'd be able to undo the hoses, I guess, in a place where you might not have wrapped the bar tape to. And so you can disconnect both front and rear brake hose and sort of just pull the whole handlebar assembly off the bike without having to even rebleed the brakes. I think this is quite interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, but I hope it's real, basically. I think it's, the website to me is missing some details like pricing and where to buy it. It feels concept-y to me at the moment, but I do hope that.
I think it looks like the intention is it is going to be a real thing, but at the moment it's not quite there.
Yeah.
And I think there are other interesting things as well, like the drop shape and the forward sweep on the tops and stuff. It looks like a very interesting bar, one that could go two ways, could either be really good or really terrible. Who knows?
Yeah, you say interesting about that drop shape. I say terrible.
I think though it is sort of in line with what we're seeing from a lot of manufacturers now, where they're trying to get the hoses still hidden, but with some level of sort of you can drop them out pretty easily
Mm-hmm.
without having to cut hoses or remove them from the levers or whatever. This goes a step further because it's got these decoupler grooves in it. They have, as you said, the decouplers shown on the website. It's
Yep.
not clear whether they're their own product or which decouplers are using. There is obviously those the Xeno Q connector V2 hydraulic things that came out last year, but these look like they're even bigger than that. I
Yeah.
mean, we're looking at pictures; it's hard to tell. But I do think, Dave, you'll know better than me, but those decouplers have always promised a lot on paper, but never
Yeah.
quite live up to it in reality. I
Not
though
on integrated
want,
bikes, at least.
yeah, I want to offer some glimmer of hope for the future in terms of decouplers being a very good thing because, or becoming much better because Formula One, Dave, Formula
Mm.
One and trickle down technology. I don't know if you watched the Australian Grand Prix at the weekend, but Formula One has a whole new series of regulations this year. And part of that is that the front wings are adjustable. And so when they're on a straight line on the straights, they can move the wings so there's less drag and they go faster. They don't need the downforce for cornering there. Part of the problem, though, is that those are how do you actuate those? Because the front wing is typically a part of the car that gets broken and crashed quite often, and they used to be able to change them in like 6 seconds. But with this new actuation of the wing, how do you fix that? And apparently, there's a couple of different routes that teams are taking, but one of them is with hydraulic decouplers. And so I think maybe 10 years from now, rather than Formula One technology trickling down into the cars we drive, maybe it'll be on the bikes we ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this could be one of the solutions to easier headset servicing. If you could just click the decouplers loose and they don't require rebleeding these decouplers. Typically, you can connect and disconnect them a handful of times before you need to rebleed the brakes. You could, in theory, do a full headset service, click them back together, and not really waste hours. It might just be half an hour or an hour to drop the fork out and do a complete service on this bike without new hoses and new bar tape and all that being involved. So some promising things. Anyway, we'll try find out more. It's interesting
Just
and
on that,
mm,
like the BMC bars. So I don't have them myself, but as I said, I was putting them on a bike. I think they're Aero Gen 2 or something. They're called very nice looking bars. And I was putting them on this bike. And I realized that while they have put the groove in the bottom of the bars so that you can drop the cables out and that's easy, the sort of required spacer that you have to run with these bars isn't. There are split spacers so you can adjust the height, but there is one spacer that has to go onto the bars to get the hoses feeding into that groove. That's not a split spacer, and so there's still this part in there that either you're gonna have, you're
yeah,
gonna have to remove at least you can just unscrew them from the lever
yeah.
and feed them through. But sometimes that goes fine. Most of the time you have to rebleed then as well when you do that if you want it perfect like so.
Yeah, yeah. I think the photos in this show a coupler that's a little bit larger in diameter than the hose, so that does create problems with getting it through the actual headset cover ports that may or may not be present. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think that there are couplers coming out or that are already in the market that are not too different to the diameter of the hose. They're just really long, and so you can't normally stick them in a bar or in a stem because they need to be, those points need a bendy hose. But this having it, basically routed externally where you can access it, I think is kind of what we're talking about as the interesting point. So yeah, you can have a long rigid section of this decoupler hose accessible is kind of what's got me excited about this. So
Champn, CHAMPN dot
yep,
club if you want to
yep,
put a. Well,
yep,
now we're on video. We can have like
yep.
photos
And
flashing
tell us
and
whether
stuff.
this is just whether we've been got by AI or not. But anyway, let's move on. Ronan, you spotted some envies under Pogi. What are these?
Maybe.
Ah,
Because Pagaccia, he obviously won Strade Bianchi. He turned up to Strade Bianchi, so obviously he won Strade Bianchi at the weekend. First race of the season, just a wee 80-kilometer solo move. But on his Y1RS, he had Enve's. Well, when you first looked at it, you thought, oh, that's the SES 6.7 Enve's. But when you think about that, it couldn't be because the SES 6.7s have a 67mm rear rim depth, and on the new UCI regulations, 65mm is the maximum depth you can run. And so So delving a bit deeper into those, looking a bit closer, sending a photo to a few different people. It seems like Enve has some new rims coming, a new set of SES
It's not
6.7s.
it's not surprising. It could also just
Not,
be two front rims.
could it?
I don't know.
Look, I'm pretty sure it's new Envies.
Yeah, okay.
And as you said, it's not too surprising because last year they brought out the update to the 4.5s, the SES 4.5
Yep.
Pros,
Yeah.
And those were lighter and they had the mini
Now with
hooks
more
and all
hook.
that. More now with more hook. And presumably they're going to do the same thing with the 6.7s. Either that or the commissaires just, give Pogi a pass because he's Pogi, and somebody else rode 67 milligrams probably would get disqualified, but
Yeah.
you can't
And
go disqualifying the big stars of this sport.
it's also not a safety risk when the guy's out in front for 80k.
Yeah, I mean, 65 mil, 70 mil, 80 mil rims aren't a safety risk anyway if they're designed well. But yeah, like you can't tick the box for having and be able to say you've tried to do something if you don't ban the wheels that aren't unsafe to start with. The wheels that are genuinely unsafe, let's just keep them rolling. They're fine. But the rim depth that has little effect if they're well designed, ban that as quickly as possible. Anyway, we're getting off track here.
Yes, we are. Anyway,
it looks like they've got a new hub, new
Yeah.
MVs. Kind of, very difficult to spot if they just look like the 6.7s. I'm going to go ahead and guess that the rear rim is bang on 65 mil though, in keeping with that new regulation.
And lighter than the existing model, and with probably mini hooks.
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, given the way the SES 4.5s went.
Yep. Anyway, one to watch out for. All right. Next on the list, we've got a new Bianchi Infinito, which is kind of like their sporty endurance road bike, has just come out in the last week. We were invited to that launch, but we didn't go. Should we talk about why we didn't go?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, just on the bike, it is the new Infinito, which is their sort of all-road endurance model. And they've sort of maxed out the trends on that. It's got 40 mil tire clearance now. I think it was 32 on the old one, so that's been bumped up. Yeah. They have also revised their countervail technology, vibration absorption thing. Which makes for a lighter frame, but still apparently offers that vibration absorption. They've also included a downtube storage box in this one, so if you want somewhere to put your hydraulic hose decouplers inside that downtube. We were invited to the launch. We opted not to go. I was very tempted because it was one of those situations where I don't know why brands have to do this. Presumably it's because they can't trust everyone, but it makes it very difficult for us to decide whether we're going to go to an event, a press trip or not, when we can't see the thing, know about the thing. We have to decide blind whether we're going to go or not, without being able to ascertain whether or not it is of interest to our audience or not. Sometimes you make the decision, or you have to make the decision because it's a new giant propel. People are going to be interested in the propel. Let's go to that. And then you turn up and it's the old giant propel with new handlebars. And that is not a great use of our time. People are always asking us to do more of X, Y, and Z. And when we're doing A and B, you kind of, the time for X, Y, and Z falls by the wayside. Anyway, what we knew about the new Bianchi was that it was a new Infinito. We were like, that's probably of interest. There wasn't much more information given. When pushed, we got a geometry chart, which was already like, I'm not sure this is a bike for me to go to. But then when push came to shove and we had to actually confirm whether we're going or not, it became, or we were just informed that the embargo for this bike was on the same day as the press presentation, which, I mean, you might think that's fine, but that doesn't really work for us because, as we've delved into before, when the embargo is like that, you're sort of penalizing the press who do make the effort to go to your event.
You're forcing them to flip the press release.
Yeah, forcing us to flip the press release, but also it incentivizes all these sort of bad things. And that the incentive is, we wouldn't do it, it wouldn't work for us, but the incentive is to get a piece up as quickly as possible rather than doing a piece that delves into the bike in more detail. Now, you might think, well, you can just wait a day and go after the embargo. What tends to happen then is that it just doesn't perform as well in terms of reach and, you know, people who actually read it, because, you know, even if you're an Escape Collective member, you might have seen that information elsewhere. You're vaguely interested, or maybe not even interested in the Infinito, and, you know, you have the information you need. You're not really going to delve into our article, and so it becomes a complete waste of time, of our time, and not a waste, but it's the opportunity cost. What could we be covering instead? And so with that in mind, we were like, thanks, but we're going to have to pass on this one, given the turnaround time doesn't work for our model.
We've been having an increasing number of conversations about this kind of topic, where like what launch is important enough for us to attend and what isn't a great use of our time. Because our tech team, you know, we're got quite a sizable tech team. I think there's 5 of us full time with Escape on tech and plus contributors, but it feels like we're short staffed for the amount of demand out there for tech to cover, and we are, you know, caught up at times on the mouse wheel of new tech without really focusing on what we actually know our audience really wants, which is not always. Some people come to us for new tech, but there is more to the world of cycling tech than just covering and writing new stuff. So we're kind of trying to reprioritize that and figure out what a launch looks like for us and what the value is for us and for members mostly. But yeah, I think this one was certainly an example of like, no, that doesn't pass the muster. You know, having the embargo on the day that we're there is stressful for the author, but it also guarantees that the content that'll come from that is very brand driven, and, you know, doesn't really give us time to form our own thoughts. So
I will say as well, it's not always a simple, like, there will be times that we go to events where the embargo is on the same day. You know, we try to balance this and make the best decision in every, on a case by case basis. Hopefully we get it right more often than we get it wrong. What ended up happening with the Bianchi was that it went into our daily news, and when you read through that piece, you get the, you know, the basic information. What is new? That part, which is kind of what we could have done anyway in such a quick turnaround. Like, we weren't going to be getting a press release ahead of time. We weren't really going to get to ride the bike ahead of the embargo. You know, we would have been going there. I would have got to ride Strada Bianchi on Sunday, the Gran Fondo, which would have been fun. But apart from that, if I'm honest, I think that was my main motivation for going.
yes, it was.
But,
that was their main sell.
Yeah. I mean, the bike looks great.
Yeah,
I
it
think,
does.
you know, Bianchi have made a few missteps in recent years, but this is
Yeah.
it seemed,
It looks like
it's a
a
nice
really
looking
like
bike.
it looks kind of quite comparable in many features to like the 51 Seeker, for example. That tire clearance and the geometry. The Bianchi's even more upright, which I think is quite good for the masses, and the pricing also looks good. So yeah, I do think they largely have created a nice bike here that we should test in the future. But yeah, doing it at the launch wasn't the place for it. So
I've been thinking about this as well. Like, and we do need to get. I just don't understand why brands, even like, obviously under embargo, we're not going to break the embargoes. Trust us on that. Give us more information so we can decide, yes, this is worth traveling to, or this is not. And I'm considering taking that a step further. And like, if you're not going to be able to get the bike dialed into my position, I don't know if I can. Again, there will be exceptions to this, but effectively, what, like, if you think about anybody who's ever gone for a bike fit, they come out of it and they go, "Oh, my bike feels so much better now I've had a bike fit." We're being asked to review bikes with a poor bike fit. We're going in the other direction. We're going like, right, this is a bad bike fit for me. How does this bike perform?
No, you're not testing the bike at that point. You're just testing your ability to ride a bike that doesn't fit. So
and you know, also the photographer's ability to make me look good on a bike that doesn't fit me.
True test.
So
anyway, yeah, we're not going to pretend like we've got that equation correct yet. We're always learning, always improving, always refining. But I do think increasingly we're going to be really requesting brands to give us heads up notice if they want us to have any content at sort of embargo release, that we really want advanced time on that bike, and not just a day at a press launch.
I think it's also worth mentioning, Dave, that this isn't the motivation for us in saying this and deciding this isn't to make our jobs easier. It actually makes our jobs a lot more difficult. There's a lot more to do when you want to take the in-depth approach. It's certainly not for the brands, although they will benefit from it if there's more in-depth coverage there. We can actually answer questions rather than raising questions. It's entirely for the audience. Like, the only reason we do this is for the, like, I could turn up and write a bike that doesn't fit me on a moment's notice and turn around a piece within 10 minutes, it doesn't really actually add anything more than a daily news piece would.
Yep.
But of what value is that to the audience reading it? I appreciate sometimes our pieces get a bit too long.
Yes.
But tell me which parts to drop, and then I will drop them and go into the comment section and watch the people who are asking for, what about this part? Where it's like, that's the part I decided to drop to keep it short.
Yep. As our managing editor Joe Lindsay told me last week, not every piece we publish needs to be War and Peace, but I still would rather us be more detailed or be more thoughtful than what I think I have elsewhere.
2,500 word review of the Castelli's new Perfetto coming out this week, and you read the draft. You're like, where's the rest of it?
That's true. It did feel short. Hey, I just wrote 3,500 words about a click valve. So, yeah, your jacket review seems just fine to me.
It is.
All right.
I think it's spot on.
Let's move on to other things that have zippers. We've got some tech bites. We've got. Oh. You didn't know where I was going with that one.
No idea.
Tech bites. We've got 2 new bike bags. So we've got one from Evoc, which to me is somewhat of a benchmark product in the category of travel bags. I think their travel cases have been widely copied, and for good reason. They got a new mountain bike handlebar bag. They got a new mountain bike bag, a pro version bag that actually allows you to keep your mountain bike handlebar attached. So it's similar idea to a lot of the road bags we're starting to see on the market, that assuming you have an integrated bar and stem, it lets you keep that handlebar attached and in line to the fork. Same concept for the mountain bike here. It just, you turn the handlebars 90 degrees and the case is sort of diagonally elongated to let you fit a full mountain bike in there. I'm still waiting to hear back on whether this bag actually has space for 32-inch wheels, which I think is going to be a burning question for 3 people listening. Yes, John, I know you're listening. And I think that, to me, will probably determine whether people actually spend the sort of money that this bag costs. But it's cool to see this sort of advancements, because some mountain bikes have gone the way of headset cable routing, and especially the sort of mountain bikes that people put in bags and take to events all around the world. This is now a problem. And so it's really cool to see Evoc coming up with an answer to it. I think this looks like a real easy bag to pack.
Drop bar mountain bike compatible?
Probably, but...
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not, actually. I think the regular one would work for that. Their Pro Road bag, I think it's called, which lets you keep the bar on in that bag. Speaking of road bars, Post Carry Co., they have a bunch of bike cases and bike bags as a company. They have just released a bag called the Luma, which means they are yet another company to join the small list of brands that offer drop bar friendly travel cases. So the idea here is, if you've got a gravel or a road bike that has an integrated handlebar and it's not great to remove that handlebar, these cases allow you to just, as I mentioned, keep your bar in place, just bolt the fork in, and away you travel. This one's quite cool because it does all that while being a little bit smaller, like 10-20% smaller than a lot of the Geeking or the Evoc cases, or Oru case also have one. So yeah, there's a few brands that are doing similar cases, but this one looks more compact, which I think is quite cool. So
on that Luma, the wheels are, when you put them in the bag, they sort of sit inside the drops, so they're protecting the frame. But in my head, I'm thinking that sort of leaves
exposes the drops.
Yeah. The drops are sort of, first of all, the forks are fixed in place, so the bars are fixed in place by extension. And yeah, just thinking about baggage handlers and all sorts, that there could be a case thrown that lands square on that.
So this might be one we test in future. I would like to test this against some other cases, and I think that testing these things takes a lot of space, so a little hesitant to agree to start this, but I think that's it is one of the questions I have, which is, the level of protection. I would assume the case has some reinforcements around that, but what you're describing there is the biggest weakness of that existing and hugely popular, the Skicon Aero Comfort 3.0 TSA, whatever the name is. It's the case. Anytime you go to a big bike event, you see these moving around like cows in a field at the airport. And I think it's a very, very popular case. And to me, that leaves the bars incredibly exposed, incredibly vulnerable. And so I don't think Post Carry it would be alone in this, even if they had no padding in that area. But my guess is they've come up with a reinforcement around the handlebar. So yeah, one to test, but still, it's nice to see more case options come into the market. This one will fit gravel bikes. I believe it was up to a 50 or 55 mil tire. I think it's 55 mil tire size, and up to a 46 width handlebar in this case. So yeah. Anyway, I think it's just as people travel around, I think it's nice that these cases allow you to take your most current bike without any stress. I think it really does ease the process if you've got a new integrated bike. So cases to look at. Ronan, should we take a quick break and then get into what's on our mind?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's take a quick break. Back in a moment. Ronan, we're back. All right, this one's been on my mind this week, which is as I look behind me, I look around me. I have a stack of bikes behind me. This isn't meant to be a flex, but it's going to be. I have one with Ultegra Di2, one with wheel top gravel group set, which I really need to finish reviewing so I can get it the hell off my bike. I've got one with...
Is that the review?
Spoiler. And then I also have one with Campagnolo Super Record X, the 1x13.
Have you ridden that yet?
Yeah, just not enough. And so I need to spend a lot more time on that still. But it's pretty cool. I'm forgetting one as well. There's another electronic bike around here somewhere. Anyway, there's a bunch of them. And I'm starting to run into the issue where it's like I can't keep in my mind how each one even like charges or how long the battery lasts for, or when I do need to like update firmware, how I go about that. And I guess where this is coming from is that as I work through bikes and I work on bikes of multiple generations, I had like last week I helped someone get their early 11-speed Ultegra out of crash mode, and it took me a second to remember what I had to do there versus like 12-speed versus a different brand. There's just like a lot of nuance in these electronic group sets that just really complicates things. And I just find myself thinking like, I'm starting to think that my brain is full and that I can't take on any more information related to electronic group sets. And that...
Have you heard of AI?
Yeah.
It seems like you need some AI in your life.
I think, well, that's the thing. Like I find myself looking at manuals increasingly because I often see these group sets. Okay, 11-speed Di2 I see all the damn time, and 12-speed Di2, sure. And some of the SRAM group sets, sure, comfortable there. But some of these others, I'm finding myself having to look up the manual each time something goes wrong or I need to tweak something. I don't know. It's just...
I think first of all, some homework for the listeners.
Yeah.
Go back 2 episodes and listen to the PSA know when you don't know what you're doing, because what you're exhibiting here is that you do the right thing when you don't know what you're doing. You go and you look it up. I mean, I thought you were going a different direction. I thought you were going to say like, oh, you get on the bike and you're mis-shifting because you're pressing the button. That I don't get that. My brain just seems to reset. I'll get off a Shimano bike and onto a SRAM bike or onto a Campy bike, and it just like my hands just do the thing, and then I'll be like half an hour and go, oh, I seamlessly transitioned there. I didn't really have to think about it.
Yeah, it only takes me half a ride to transition. It's not a bit... I'm quite quick at that. I do know other tech editors struggle with that, but yeah, I think my brain has merged over to preferring SRAM though, because I do more often than not find myself reverting to SRAM shifting method on every bike. But
yeah, and like I think that the SRAM shifting style works very well on the new Campy stuff as well. I don't find that worked when I tried to do that with Shimano. That's when I then started making mistakes.
Yes,
it's like there's something built into my mind that there's 2 buttons on either lever on Shimano and they do a specific thing, and if I tried to change that, that's when I can't retrain that. I don't know if it's because those buttons are so close together or whatever, but yeah. So when on Shimano that doesn't work for me, but the other 2 it does, and that's my preference with the other 2. But yeah, I'm 100% with you here, and I have to admit I sort of cringed a little bit earlier when you said, I can't remember what we're talking about, but you had said, we were talking about the tech hire rule, and you said like if you need to go on to YouTube to remember how to bleed a brake, probably not the job for you. While I agree, I like there are
nuances between each brake. Yeah.
No, not even just specifically on the brake, but like what I was going to say, like there are jobs on bikes that I have that I know how to do and have done in the past, but it gets so long between having done them the last time and needing to do them again, maybe a couple of years. And in the intervening period, you're like, maybe it's a SRAM thing and you're working on Shimano for a year and you've done this job on Shimano products for a year, but then it's slightly different with SRAM, and you're like, how do I do this again? And what order is it? And like, actually, in Breakblades, I did recently, just before I did a job on a campus setup, I just reminded myself of what is the process here, because it is slightly different. And I think it's the same thing. There's just so much nuance between things that on paper do the same thing, but you set them up in very different ways, operate them in very different ways, service them in very different ways, and not knowing that is a recipe for disaster.
Yep. And all of this is, and I'm still ignoring earlier generations of Campagnolo EPS and the error codes the color-based error codes that you would have to go off of anytime you had problems. Like, I've completely forgotten about all of that now, but yeah, I don't know. The more I test and the more I work on modern electronic bikes, the more I just think like this is only an increasing problem, and it's cool if you've just got one bike at a time and you can figure it out and you can master it. But for mechanics and for people with multiple bikes, I think it is kind of like it's a bit of like a brain drain in a sense. I think it's, for 20 years, I could look at any bike and know exactly how to adjust that derailleur, having never seen that particular model derailleur. Like, they all kind of work the same way. Okay, maybe like Shimano Rapid Rise did the opposite, but still, you could figure it out. But yeah, electronics is just a whole new world. And then that even, I'm not even mentioning e-bikes. That's just, that's yikes.
I think though, if you're like, we've always said this about pro team mechanics, they work on the same thing day in, day out, no variation, and they are experts on that. But because they're not seeing other stuff, no doubt they have, skills that I could only dream of and would very, very quickly get up to speed on stuff. But if they're on a SRAM team, don't hand them something from Shimano, because they're
don't even ask them for a crankcap preload tool. They're not going to have it in the toolbox.
Probably not. I mean, it's just unnecessary weight. Those 5 or 10 grams. We need toolboxes are very much a thing. But yeah, it's I do think we're just it's a very useful retake on the know when you don't know what you're doing PSA from a couple of weeks ago.
All right, well, there you go. Repeating segments accidentally.
I do think if you were in a shop, working day in, day out in a shop where, any type of bike or any type of component is on sale and brought in for service, you probably wouldn't find yourself having to remind yourself as often. You'd be working on this stuff more often. It would just be there in your brain. You wouldn't have to try to remember. It's I think a lot of it's, at least for me anyway, stems from the gap between times that you do a job.
Unless it's calibrating a V2 EPS.
No, that's easy. You press both buttons together for 8 seconds until the light turns
purple.
Blue.
Oh, it's blue. Purple. Yeah, okay.
I used to take so much pride in knowing how to do that. I'm sure if I was standing with the bike in hand, it's like muscle memory. But perhaps the memory has been forgotten. Who knows? I can try it later.
I think the summary of this is one we summarized 2 weeks ago, which is if you're not sure, read the manual, because there are nuances in between each.
RTFM.
Yes. Or just do what I do, which is shake the bike and hope the battery turns on. And if not, then spend the next 20 minutes looking for the proprietary cable that's unique to that group set, and then find 3 others that for the other bikes that you have here. And then eventually just grab a different bike because the battery's flat in the one that you need to charge.
Which kind of gets us into our not our first Ask a Wrench question, but there is an Ask a Wrench question that is related to everything you just talked about.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that. I think that's a good place to close things off for this week. And we are going to head on over to our Ask a Wrench section, which is, as a reminder, for members only, for members of Escape Collective, for those that support what we do and in turn get everything that we do. If you're not already a member, head to escapecollective.com/geek warning. And you'll be able to find out all the perks there.
What we should do with this whole video extravaganza thing that we're doing is the Ask a Wrench, because that's obviously for members only, and the YouTube video is going to be for anybody. We should just keep recording the video, but model up the sound and blur our faces. And so you just get like, no, that wouldn't work actually, because then people wouldn't watch it all the way through, and then the algorithm would penalize us because our video isn't getting watched in full. And
yeah, that's why it's a bad idea.
Hole now.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
There needs to be some sort of punishment for not being an Escape Collective member.
Absolutely. Well, the punishment is you just don't get Ask a Wrench. So,
okay.
And
we're covered then. Started.
Yeah. All good. Also, just a bit of a shameless plug. I've spent the last few weeks and few months actually teasing this, but the last few weeks working on it, and it comes from a culmination of multiple years testing these things. So yeah, a bunch of work went into this, but basically if you're in the market for expanding bearing removers, yes, it's very niche, but yeah, if you're in the market for tools dedicated to the purpose of removing bearings from like hubs and frame pivots, then I have a feature/comparative review now done. So yeah, by the time you're listening to this, my latest threaded article should be live, and that delves into that topic, including telling you what tools to get and which ones maybe don't do what they need to do. So yeah, hopefully one for the tool nerds. All right, let's move on to Ask a Wrench.